Hi everyone, welcome back to the C-Sharp's basic course. Today we're going to be talking about class properties. So from what I gathered, I actually tried to do properties the other day when I was filming other class stuff, and I wasn't able to get to it, but properties look like fields from the outside. But on the inside, they sort of contain logic and are sort of like methods in a way. You can do special things with properties, and it's basically an intermediary between a field and a method. So I'm going to make a property that's called, it's going to be public. Let's do a double, and it's going to be net worth. And so when people want to get this, we're going to have to create these fields. We're going to return, let's say, gross wealth minus debt. So we need to create these properties. Gross wealth is going to be a double. This is a private too, so it's cool. This way we can do encapsulation. So we create a new private double gross wealth, and then we'll create another private double debt. And so we can do this more verbose thing with properties of saying get, but there's actually a shorthand way to do this. If we go back here, and if we do the equals arrow sign, we'll just say gross wealth minus debt. So if you're having a property that's only equal to, or if you only want to get this property, then you can just do this single line lambda expression. Now, sometimes properties won't have like this sort of logic, and this is something that I've been finally waiting to understand. So properties can actually have automatic getters and setters created. So we can show how these automatic properties work if we do a public double, and then let's just say wealth, just to avoid name conflicts. But if we make our curly braces and then say get and set, it automatically will create a wealth field in the back end. And so if we want to get that, we can get it. So C# is doing everything automatically for us. So if there's not much logic that we need, then we can just use this automatic stuff. And I have been seeing this everywhere, and I was so confused by it. It never made sense. So I'm glad that I finally understand that. And it's nice that C# has these automatic features that can help speed up code and make it more maintainable. And on top of this, we can even set wealth equal to something initially. So if we say 1345, and we have a double here, so we can add decimal numbers after. So we're able to actually set the default value off the start. So if somebody were to get this, they'd get 1345.45, and then they can set it to a new value as well. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and remove all this code. And so really quickly, I want to demo something. So if we were to create a new string and just say hello, we can do this thing where we do console.writeLine, and then we can say string at the second or the third position technically. And since we're using system console namespace, we don't even need this. Nice little thing. So we're going to look into how we can actually implement this indexer. I can't remember exactly what it was called in C++, but you're able to overload this, and it looks like you're able to overload it too in C#. So we're going to look into how to do that. So we're going to create a new string array of words and set this equal to, let's say, the sentence. Could be anything you want, .split. Boom. So basically what this does is split by default will split this string into a string array by delimiting on every space. So the 0th index will be this, first index will be is, second, so on. And so for this, we just say public string this, and then we can say int index. And then for our getter, we'll say we want to return words at the index. And then for setter, we'll say that words at the index position will equal some value. And I just realized, so value is a reserved keyword, I can tell that, and it looks like if we were to go back in and import this class, let's create a new my first class instance. MFC equals new my first class. We don't need to pass in anything. And then if we do MFC at the first position, actually I want to wrap this around a right line. And then we need a semicolon. And then we can actually use MFC, let's say at the second position. We can set this equal, so we said at the second position 0, 1, 2, A. We'll just say this is AN string. And so if we were to print out right line, MFC 2, we should see the results. So I'm going to do a read key here, just so that way we can see the results. And let's check this out. Oh, main needs to be capital. Boom. Okay, so our first thing is that we index the first position, which is this one. So we expect to see is, which we do. And then when we first initialize this, the second position is A, but then we set it equal to AN, and we see these changes displayed here. So it's pretty cool. I think the biggest thing is that you can just pass in this value, right? So it's just some sort of value that will work within the confines of whatever the type needs. Okay, so we have constructors before, and I'm just going to go back in the code. So this is our constructor, and so we'll create this each time that a new my first class is created, right? But then eventually my first class goes out of scope. So I have to actually pass in a name string. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and remove these access modifiers. Each time that we create this, it'll create a new object, and then eventually, in this case, we create one my first class, and then main ends. Right before main ends, the garbage collector comes in and frees up the memory that was created when we created this class. So we can actually sort of define how C# should destroy our object once it goes out of scope, and this is called, in C#, it's called a finalizer. In C++, it's called the deconstructor, and I like that name more. It sort of makes more sense. You have the constructor, and then you have the, it's actually called the destructor. I like that name more because it's more semantic, and it helps people know what's going on. But anyways, if we wanted to have a destructor for this, we just have a tilde, and then we say my first class. We have parameters, and then we just have the thing. So it looks pretty much exactly like a constructor, except it doesn't have an access modifier. So the book doesn't actually go into how the finalizer works, but it won't apply to a class like this that's this simple. But when we get in much more complex like class structures, it's helpful to actually say, okay, here's the steps on how you should destroy this class, so that way you don't mess it up. And you can think of like a bank account, again, is a good example to make sure like you wouldn't want anything going wrong. You want to make sure that the entire class is destroyed. If something goes wrong in the process, you would like to make sure that the like account numbers are unusable. So it's just a good way to make sure that you actually destroy a class correctly, but it applies to much more complex classes. And that's it for classes in C#. Thanks for watching.